If you like this video, make sure to visit our Vimeo page and follow us to get the latest update.
Okay, so this is the end user level view which we have started discussing, where we have covered, I think the general data part we have covered, I guess. Okay, and then we came into the item section. So I think in the item section also, we have seen what are the different features, what are the different attributes you have for items. So like, for example, if you are transporting any package item, you get to see all the packaging information here. If it is related to any specific quantities, you can capture different quantities here. In case you want to see the different types of business partner, you can see it here. OK. And also in case there is any information about the particular freight which you are transporting, you can put the text types here. OK. So this was what we covered for the general data part. And if I go into the business partner tab, so in the business partner tab, these are the different roles. Why party role is important? Because with the help of party role, you can see who are the different business partners who are actually available for that particular, transportation process. So like, for example, shipper, consignee, carrier, ordering party. So these are the standard roles which are available always. So based on the setup of your partner profile, if you remember, when I went to business partner, I've shown you like the different partner functions or role which appears here is completely based on the specific business partner functions added in the configuration, right? So based on that, the partner roles are available here. Now we'll go into the document flow. So this is very important. So I think we have taken a long freight unit perhaps. Let me open this freight unit which we created. OK. Oh, not this one. Okay, let me open the delivery number. Okay, so the freight unit was 1566. 566. Sorry, any question?
806153.
Yeah.
806153.
Yeah. So if you see this document flow, this is very important because this document flow, you can get to see the entire end-to-end documents. That means, like, for example, here my transportation management, like the freight unit, you can directly see with which document it is linked up, your delivery document, your OTR, your DTR, your sales order, and also what is the successor document. So successor document is something where you can see what is the freight order, freight booking, etc. So you can directly see the list of different business documents, which will actually help you to understand like what is the reference based on which your freight unit is created. OK. And here you can also see what is the statuses of each of the documents which reference with which it is created. So for example, your freight unit. So the freight unit is in process. Like the sales order and the corresponding OTR, it is planned. You have created a freight order, which is in process, freight booking, which is in process, freight organ booking, freight order, which is in process. So you can also get to see the life cycle status of each of the business documents which is created here. This is a created by. So created by means Basically here you can see which is the RFs. As you know, like freight unit is created automatically. So when you are creating freight unit automatically, it is actually creating with reference to the user ID. Okay. And you can also see here when these documents got created, on which time the documents got created. You can also get to see who has created the document, who has changed the document, on what date and time it got changed, and who is the business partner. That means the business partner is mainly the carrier, for example, for the freight order, right? So here you can see also the business partner item. So in other words, the entire document flow is basically comprising of the documents which is associated with the freight unit. Okay. Any question on this? Clear to everyone? Then we come across to the notes tab. So what is the notes tab? So notes tab is basically the place where I have shown you last time that in case you are maintaining any text in your delivery document, those text will come up in your freight unit. So you can also maintain the text manually also. So for example, if you click here, so these are the different text types. So if you want to specify some text related to handling unit, then handle with care. Okay. So you can also specify when this particular information was created and who has created it, and accordingly you can click on the save button. Okay, so you see my name came here and also the date and time also came here. This is again an attachment section. So attachment section means basically what documents to attach, insert here. So you can always insert some documents. You can download the PDF. You can display the PDF. You can print the PDFs. So when you are inserting any document, you can always insert any folded file. So what happens, like for example, your freight unit is damaged. So you can take a picture and you can upload it here. So the attachments tab is a thing functionality which is used in order to update or upload any specific documents for your particular freight unit. That's where the attachment option comes into the picture. Okay. Now comes the status tab. So any idea what do you mean by status? Anything which comes to your mind? So status is something which will give an overview of what is the status of your freight. Okay. So when I say status of your freight, basically it will indicate whether so different status has different implication. So when I'm talking about life cycle status, so life cycle status means the life cycle of the entire freight unit. So whether it is in process, whether it is completed, or whether it is updated, anything. Okay, it will be shown accordingly. User don't have control on this. Users need to actually see the statuses and do the needful. Fixing status. Fixing means, so for example, if you click on this fix button, this will come inside. So now it is fixed. If you want to unfix it, you can also unfix. Okay. So unfix and fix status means basically, like the one which indicates that if you are fixing it, you will not be able to change it later. So when you are sure that there is no further changes required to do any type of freight unit, you can always do a fixing status. But if you are not fixing it, it will not have any impact on your subsequent process flow. Sometimes the business wants that at what status I can do the changes in freight unit. That status is your fixing status. So there is archiving status. So archiving status means whether it is archived or not archived. So archive means, for example, if you want to permanently delete the freight unit. And if you want to remove it from the system, then the archiving can be done. So archiving can always be, it's not a mandatory thing to do it, because sometimes some freight unit has been created, but you don't want to plan that freight unit. So what you want to keep it? Whether you want to keep the freight unit in the system or whether you want to permanently remove the freight unit so that your performance are not impacted due to a freight unit which is not to be planned at all. So why to keep unplanned freight unit in the system? So for that, you can use archiving rule. Your basis can set it up based on which, suppose if you say, okay, means those documents which are 90 days old needs to be archived. So you can always put some rules there, and accordingly the freight unit will be removed from the system. That is called as the archiving status. So whether your document is archived or not, that will be completely dependent on that. Next part is the planning and the execution. So planning and the execution means how is your planning? That means whether your planning of freight unit has started or whether your execution has started, that is controlled by the planning and the execution. Okay. So when I say planning and the execution, that means what is the planning status? So under planning and execution, we have three statuses: planning status, execution status, delivery status. Planning status means it's planned because you have seen that I have already created freight order, freight booking based on the document flow. That means planning has already been done. Execution status. So execution status means whether in your freight order or freight booking, you have indicated that your execution process has started. That means execution means whether your loading has started, unloading has started, check-in has been done, departure has been done, arrival has been done. All this information are part of the execution status. And it will indicate whether your execution has started. So this execution tracking actually is related also to event management. Okay. And then the delivery status. Delivery status means not delivered. So the delivery status not delivered means basically whether the delivery will happen or not. Okay. So not delivered means in case your delivery of the freight unit has not happened, then we can think of this. Then comes the custom status. So custom status means in case you are having an integration with GTS module, then the custom status will be there in the system. So in other words, in case I need to integrate my GTS with my customs, in that case, the custom status can be updated accordingly. So for example, some freight unit requires filing. Some freight unit needs to have a declaration confirmation from security from the customs authorities. So in that case, the customs authorities will send the message back into GTS and the GTS will have an update back into TM. So in this way, the custom status will be updated. And then the planning block, execution block, delivery block. So these blocks are actually the block which happens when, in case some master data is missing, some, declaration is missing. So in case some conflict is there, so based on the conflict, the blocks can be there. So if there is a block in the planning, then there is a planning block. If there is a block in execution, that can be an execution block. If there is a block in delivery, that can be a delivery block. And in case there are any blocks, you will find a block reason for that. And for any block reason, the block reason code has to be there. And in case the block reason codes are there, because any type of data which is missing will have a block reason code. And in that case, the block can be overruled manually here. Okay. So these are the different statuses which will basically appear under the status tab. Then comes the administrative data. So administrative data is quite simple. So it means, for example, who has created what type of data, when it was changed. All this information is available here. So as I told you, freight unit is created automatically. So it is created by this, created on this, change by this, change on this. So these are the different information we can have. Here you have the execution tab. So when I say execution tab, basically here you can report certain events. Okay, so execution is a very critical piece of information from TM perspective, because you need to know what is the status of your shipment. You need to know whether the shipment which you are basically transporting will be able to reach on time. You should be able to know whether your loading has started. So different activities happens in a transportation process. And for different activities, we need to have different types of tracking and tracing for the shipment. So for the freight unit part, in that case, we use again some events which will be useful in order to track the freight unit. So how will you do that? So this can be done using the event information. So if you see here, click on insert event. Now, because we are not having SAP event management integration directly with S/4HANA, okay? So that's why you see the events are blank here. So that means I don't have any mechanism to feed on the events. Because had event management been integrated with TM, in that case, we could have seen what are the different events available per freight unit with the planned date. See, there are different dates here. So the dates are blank here because we don't have any events information here with event management, because event management is not part of the in the any type of embedded S/4HANA. And if you want to have event management, we need to buy an external server in order to have it integrated. So if you want to report the events manually in the absence of event management system, you can click on this insert event. And here you can specify what are the milestones you want to track and trace. Suppose I want to track loading process. So I will type the event loading. Okay, I will also type in on what date the actual event will be occurring. And this is the location. Location means my event is being located at my shipping point. Enter. And then I report this event. Okay. So once you report this event, you'll see there is a line item which appears here. So had there been any specific events being available for event management system, these should have been green, because these should have had that planned date. Because every events which you will be having will have two dates. One is a planned date, one is your actual date. But because we don't have any integration with event management system, in that case, we will use we are clicking this event, insert event, and that's why it is considering it as an unexpected event, because I don't have a planned date for this event. And against this event, this is the actual date, this is the actual time zone, location, etc. Similarly, click on this insert event one more time. Suppose if you want to say, OK, departure is being done. So you can click here. You say departure. And this is the location. So departure is this. OK. And here I am clicking on report event. OK. So like this, loading event, departure, so a lot of events you can report manually. And based on that, you can actually take a call how you are going to use that. OK. So this is the customs event. So for the customs tab, basically we have the statuses. And based on the status, we have basically the different types of customs activity. And according, so this is mainly used in case you want to use GTS as your integration module. So the different customs activity, whether it's security filings, transit filings, export declaration, import declaration, all these things will be driven by this particular customs activity. And whenever any type of customs activity will happen, basically that will be decided based on certain parameter, like whether it's a mode of transport, what is the means of transport, how do you identify the means of transport, all this information will be there. Okay, then comes the output management tab. So this is the output management tab. So output management tab means what? So output management tab is actually whether you want to trigger any outputs for printing, faxing, emailing. In that case, we use the output management tab in order to trigger the outputs. So because you may want to print something, you may want to fax something, you may want to change, you may want to do some uploading to BW. You may want to send this information as an EDI to outside world. So there are a lot of updates you can do using the output management. So in ECC, you may have used the Nest technology framework to trigger an output. In TM, we use the PPF concept to trigger an output. And whenever we are doing any type of outputs, the outputs are actually updated here. Okay, I will show the output concept later on, but for example, if you want to see the outputs, you have to click here, and here you see here you need to indicate whether you want to, for example, this is a house baby. Okay, suppose you want to trigger it any type of outputs like printing. So you have to put a tick mark on print. If you want to send it to fax, you have to put a tick mark on fax. If you want to send this form as an email, then you have to put a tick mark as email. Okay. If you want to, suppose I want to do it for print. Okay, I want to do it for print. And then if you want to basically do the print, then you have to maintain the printer name. You have to specify how many printer copies are there. Okay, and here you can specify, in addition to that, you have to specify what is the communication details. Communication details means in case you want to send this freight unit, as a email to someone else. Here you can specify, okay, what is the subject, what is the priority, and also you can write some text. And who is going to receive this freight unit? So accordingly, you can specify in the insert tab, you can specify the recipient name, whether the name can be and also an email address. It can be a fax number, anything. Accordingly, you can share the details here. And if you want to basically before printout, if you want to basically do a print preview, you can always do here. Here you can actually see what is the output of this form look like. So when I click on this print preview, okay, so this is the standard form which actually is there. And here you can see what are the contents of the form. Okay. So the layout of the forms and all can be seen here. And always note that rather than going into individual freight unit to do a printout, what we generally do, you go into this overview freight units. Suppose I want to print this freight unit. I click here. So I go into this work list. Okay, and here. So basically, we always do the printout based on freight order and all. Because freight unit is something where we don't do the printout. Okay. So if you see, if you go into freight order management, because the concept is the same, that how to print up. So suppose if I go into freight order management, if I go to overview road freight orders. Okay, you go here and you can click on this mass output. So when you click on this mass output, system will ask what you want to print. Suppose I say I want to print a webby. So I click on this. Yeah, I click on this and here system will ask what is the printer name. So I say the printer name is LOCL, the local printer. And I say number of copies is 1. And in case your basis team has, so LOCL is not there, LP01. Okay. And in case your printer is attached, then with this action, you see it is showing 0 output because I don't have a printer. But if the printer is assigned, then the printer can be directly outputted for this. Okay. Any question? Clear to everyone? What is the output concept is about?
Viren, sorry, I missed some of this session. If you have already covered the PPF settings, then it's fine. But I just wanted to understand that will you be explaining these PPF settings as well?
Yes. PPF setting will be taken up later. Okay.
Okay.
So I have not covered any PPF setup as of now because it is little techno-functional in nature for TL. So once I will be there into it, I will let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Then we'll come into this most important part is stages tab. So the stages tab is very important. The reason is with the stages tab, you can see how many, like from where to where your shipment is moving. Okay. As I told you, by default, stages is always of a single stage, right? Shipping point to ship to party. But if you want to have multiple stages, you can use default route. You can use insert option multiple times to do that. Okay. So, for example, I have these stages, 3 stages. So these are the 3 stage types. These are the mode of transport. Okay. This is my source location. So source location means from where your shipment is beginning. And if you see why these 3 stages are coming, because I have maintained default route in my particular setup. Okay. This is the mode of transport. So mode of transport means whether you're transporting every stage by road, sea or road. That is what you see it here. This is the source location. So source location means for every stage will have a source as well as a destination. So this is the source location and every source location has a pickup date and delivery date. Similarly, you'll have a destination location where every location will have a departure time, departure date and all. And once you go into the right hand side, you'll see this is the pickup date, pickup time. This is the departure date, departure time for every stage. So if you have got 3 stages, that means you will have pickup time for 3 individual different stages. Similarly, this is the requested delivery date, requested delivery time. And this is the arrival date, arrival time. Okay, so all the information per stage wise, what you have for source and destination, that will be available there. And in case, because I have created my shipment document here per stage wise, so you will see the carrier is also updated because this information is coming from the route. Because I have maintained the route for this particular freight unit stages. So if I click on the route, if you see the stage, first stage is DHL, second is 101, third stage is DOT, right? Because I've used default route. So if I click on this default route button, so if I open this, Why error message is coming? So if I go to freight unit, what happened here? Okay, let me close it. Yes. So if I go into edit button, if I go to default route, so you see that every stage, when I'm applying this default route, see, every stage also has a carrier. Okay. And every carrier is actually linked to a mode of transport here. So that's what you get to see in your freight unit. So when you are planning based on the default route, your entire source location, destination location is pre-filled per stage. See, it is going from TSPD to Port of Bremen to Port of New York to customer location. That's what you see in the default route as well. TSPD, Port of Bremen, Port of New York, customer location. Okay. And one more thing here, if I scroll to the right, here you can also specify which party is responsible for what type of payment. Okay. So I can specify here whether it's a prepaid party or collect party or ordering party. So ordering party means, for example, who is ordering the entire shipment. Prepaid party, your prepaid agreement party and your ordering party can be same. That means it's your shipper, and your collect agreement party is the customer location. That means you're consigning. Okay. And if you scroll down for every stage, if you see this is stage one, I have clicked, so it shows stage one. And here I've got two types of data. One is ordering data, one is scanning data. So what is ordering data? Ordering data means this is the carrier, this is the mode of transport, and this is a means of transport. Similarly, suppose it is moving from the source location to my Port of Bremen, that is, it is moving from TSPD to Port of Bremen. So here it is to be done based on a carrier. So you can see all the information. If in case, because my carrier is there in stage one. So you can see here with the carrier ID, what is the mode of transport, what is the means of transport. You can also see the location from where to where it is moving. This pickup date, delivery date is what we have seen in the general data tab before. And because I've created my freight order and freight booking, the loading date also got updated. Similarly, at a destination point also, this is my destination location, earliest pickup date, delivery date, unloading start date, unloading end date. Okay. all the information about address and all you'll get to see it. And finally, this is the planning or execution data. That means here you can see whether the execution is being done, completed. Subcontracting status means whether your carrier is assigned, and confirmation status means whether it's the carrier has confirmed the execution or not. So these statuses will always be updated automatically. You cannot do anything. So wherever you see status in TL, you don't have any manual activity here. It is all updated automatically. Okay. Any questions from anyone? Now, if you want to add any multi-stage, okay, so you can always add some multiple stages by clicking on an insert button. You can merge the stages as well. That means if you want to merge stage 1, stage 2, you can either click it with successor, with predecessor. In case your route, I think I showed you that in case your route is not applied automatically, you can always click on apply default route. You can click on the schedule. So in case you have any specific schedule to assign for any type of stages, you can assign a schedule, unassign a schedule. You can also create a freight document, as well as you can remove the document. Okay. And you can always click on determine distance and duration. So determine distance and duration means this distance and duration. If you don't have anything, you can always click on determine distance and duration. And if I go now, okay, so you'll have the value updated here. Okay. Okay, so this is all you have about your freight unit and all. Any question on this? And here, if you see, this is the follow-up button from where you can actually build your house bill of lading. You can check if your freight unit is okay. You can split your freight unit, you can merge freight units. Default route which you have assigned, you can unassign. And in case some stages are not planned, you can remove the unplanned stages, and this you can fix or unfix. You can also cancel a freight unit, and you can also trigger a declaration for customs for GTS module for security filings, cancel security filings, etc. So you can do all of these things in your freight unit part. Okay. Any confusion on freight unit? I'll show you the scenario even in S/4HANA also. How does the freight unit buildup happens? So that you can see. So this is my S4 system. So if I go to BA01, I'll just do delivery based planning. I just remove the quantity. Okay. I created delivery. And if you see, I can directly click on this link to open my freight unit. And if I go into the stages tab, see, I've created with a single stage, right? So if you don't want to apply default route, what you can select, you can always click on this button and you can click on insert stage. So that means I can insert an additional stage. So you can also do this stage creation manually. And when you want to create it manually, if you see the source and the destination is fixed. Because now you're splitting it up with the source shipping point 2020, destination is DOGCO02. And then when you go into this destination location, so for example, let me add a port. Okay. So port of loading. This is my destination location, port of loading. So now I've got two stages. Okay. Any question? Is it understood to everyone? How you can add the stages manually also?
Yes.
Okay. And from here, you can also do the planning here. So if you want to create a planning document from here, click on capacity document and you can create a freight order from here as well. Okay. The system will ask you what is the freight order or what is the document type. I say I want to create a freight order for mode of transport road. Similarly, if you want to create a second stage, you can just create it. You can also create another capacity document. And here you can see basically the document, freight order, and you can also see here in the document flow. Okay. And the last part of freight unit, what you see here, if I go to the general data tab, is about the freight unit building rule. So if I click on this freight unit building rule, so what is freight unit building rule? So freight unit building rule is very critical from the perspective of building the freight unit. That is freight unit building rule. So when I say building of the freight unit means basically every freight unit creation is governed by FUBI. So that means within the freight unit building rule, a company has to specify certain parameters, and based on those parameters only the freight unit actually gets created. Okay. So this is my freight unit building rule name. This is the description of the freight unit building rule. And if I go into the edit button, system will ask for a transport request. And here you can actually specify on what strategy the freight unit building rule is built up. Okay. So this strategy actually defines whether you are building up a freight unit on an item basis, or whether you are going to have a splitting of your freight unit, or whether different planning requirements needs to be grouped together for your freight unit. That's all you have in your freight unit building strategy. So if I say, for example, if I click on per item, so per item means what? So let me go into the first option, per item. So if I explain you, so for example, I have got a sales order. And in a sales order, I have got two items, line item 10 with product A of 50 piece and line item 20 product B with 100 piece. So when you are selecting per item means this strategy will create separate freight units for each item. That means here I've got two items, product A, product B, so it will create two freight units. That is the meaning of per item setup. So irrespective of how many quantities you are putting in, it will always create per item basis. Okay. Now per request. So per request means, suppose I go with the same scenario where you have got two line items with two different products, but I have select per request. It should create actually one freight unit, because you are consolidating the request for different parts which can be transported together. So that means system here will actually group all the items of a business to form a freight unit. So in case you are not putting any incompatibility, in that case it will create a single line. But in case, for example, this product A is at a frozen temperature, and this product is at a normal temperature, and for both of these products, basically you have maintained some compatibility settings. Compatibility means the loading constraint, because a frozen product and a normal product cannot go to each other, right? There has to be some constraints in planning. So now to have that constraints, we need to, and if you are specifying any incompatibilities, in that case, it will create two separate freight units, because it is assumed that the incompatibility rules will be used to separate the similar items. Okay. And the third part is to consolidate as much as possible. That means if you see here the third part. So third part, consolidate as much as possible means what? Basically, again, here, for example, you have sales order 1, which is carrying product A. Okay, sales order 2, which is carrying product B. And then if you are selecting the option consolidate as much as possible, so this strategy can only be used with in case you are planning to create freight unit from a via batch job. So what it will do, it will create a freight unit. Suppose the product A has 1500 kg, product B has 1000 kg. So what it will do, it will create a single freight unit, and within the single freight unit, it will have two line items of product A and product B. So that means it will help you to consolidate multiple transportation requirements into one freight unit if there are no reasons for a split. Okay, So that is the meaning of your consolidate as much as possible. So this is the definition of your freight unit building strategy. Any question? Clear to everyone?
Yes, Manoj.
Okay. Now the next important part is this critical quantity. So this critical quantity means, and every company has to specify the critical quantity because this parameter will define the primary unit of measurement that will allow a line item on a transport to be split into multiple freight units. So for example, if you are specifying a critical quantity as gross weight, so there can be different parameters here: gross weight, gross volume, net weight, quantity, etc. So in that case, you can specify any of the critical quantities, and based on the critical quantity, you have to do the planning. So for example, I have put in my critical quantity as gross weight, and within gross weight it's LB. That means my pound. In case your material which you are transporting do not have LB, either in the material master or in the units of measurement, in that case, now there is no factor unit. So in the additional unit of measure, you also have the conversion factor, right? The base unit and the alternate unit, right? So there also, if there is no conversion available for LB or the base unit of measure is not LB, then your freight unit buildup will not happen. So it is very important that based on the critical quantity, what you have specified, the planning quantity as well as the unit of measure should be specified properly. The problem is in one freight unit building rule, you cannot have same planning quantity with two units of measure. That means if I want to use another planning quantity, for example, I use gross weight again, and instead of LB, I use kg. System will not allow. Okay, because it will say dimension already defined. That means I cannot have similar. I cannot have similar planning, two planning quantities for two different unit of measure. If your freight unit building rule is having, suppose if your sales order is having kg, and here if you have maintained LB, then you have to maintain a specific alternate unit of measure in your material master. What is kg to LB? If that is not there, your freight unit building rule will fail. Okay. So it is important that you should know what are the units of measure and the alternate unit of measure should be specified accordingly here. In addition to planning quantity, you can also specify other quantities which you have specified in the critical quantity phase, like quantity, net weight, gross weight, volume, etc. So every planning quantity is considered for capacity check of a resource. That means if you are specifying here the planning quantity as weight, gross weight, then it will be considered for the checking of the resource, what capacity the resources have been put into, and every planning quantity is copied to the freight unit. So whatever planning quantity you are putting it here, it will always be part of the freight unit. Then we have the split unit quantity concept. So the split quantities actually define the maximum capacity of a freight unit. So the system will calculate the freight unit as a multiple of the split. So for example, if I say a split is 48, so and in case I'm transporting 96 quantity of sales order quantity, in that case, my freight units will be created too because my split is 48. So 48 and remaining 48 will create another freight unit. Or for example, if I'm specifying the split quantity as 3, and if I'm transporting 10 quantity of my sales order, so it will create 4 freight units, 3 FU1, 3 FU2, 3 FU3, and for the fourth one is 2. So the split quantity is actually used to split your particular freight units based on the regulations of the country where it is moving. Okay. So the system will always calculate the freight unit as a multiple of the, and there is a concept called as a rounding quantity. So multiple based on the rounding of quantity, the system will calculate the freight unit. Okay, and whenever you want to use a split quantity, you have to always put a tick mark as item split. Okay. And in addition to this particular freight unit, if you remember when we were actually checking the when we were checking the particular freight units for using your conditions. If you remember in the logistics profile, so when we opened the logistics profile, we actually executed the there was a field called as a freight unit building condition, if you remember. If not, I'll just show you. So when you enter into this integration, you enter into ERP logistics, you enter into, this is which one? VD1. Sorry. Yes, sorry. If I go to STRO, if I go to transport management, if I go into integration, if I go to logistics integration, internal, and here if you remember while we were defining the profiles, we also check this, right? This condition. This condition is used the BRA plus condition. That means in case you want to create your freight unit based on certain conditions. So for example, if you have not maintained your unit of measure conversion in your material master. So what you can do, you can create a BRA plus condition. You can say, okay, if my unit of measurement is kg, my freight unit building rule created will be 1. If my unit of measurement is gram, my freight unit building group will be created will be 2. So that means you can use a condition. So for different conditions, that means for different unit of measure, you can have different freight unit building rule condition. So either you use the standard freight unit building rule, or you can use also the condition concept to do that. Okay. Clear, everyone? So this is, yeah. So this is what you have for your particular freight unit building rule. And as I told you, if you want to use default route in order to have the multiple stages in your freight unit, we were inserting the stages manually, right? So if you want to have an option by which you want to apply a default route, in that case, you have to put a tick mark here. In that case, it will automatically split the stages into multiple based on the default route. Okay.
Viren,
Yeah.
what is this? What is the meaning of this item swapping in the update strategy?
Which one?
The FE update strategy, item swap allowed.
Okay. So this update strategy means what? Update strategy means suppose you have got two. Okay, you see the option. Item swap. Item swap means, for example, you can always have the option to replace or transport or change your item from one item to another item. So for example, if you are transporting, suppose say, chemical product, and if you want to swap that particular item with another item which is of like for example resins, So that means you can always have the option that in case whatever is coming up in your particular freight unit. So if you see this freight unit, so this is my freight unit which is created as of now. Okay. And this freight unit is basically creating my product and my package. Okay. So right now you can actually use this particular freight unit to be swapped with another truck which is still empty. That means you are allowed to change the contents of the freight unit as well. Okay, by clicking on the insert tab and all. So that is the concept of item swap. That means you can swap the items, you can add any other items and you can transport it. So in case the item swap is not allowed, that means you cannot replace that item with other items in the freight unit. That is what is item swap is about. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So if you want to, and finally, this is my equipment, vehicle or grouping. So these basically functionality is used in case you actually want to transport through equipment. Equipment means container. So if you see under equipment or vehicle group, you can select container or vehicle type based on the equipment type. So if my equipment type is CN, okay, so you can also use this equipment type and group. That means this will be used only in case you want to maintain an equipment type in the freight unit. Then the capacity of the equipment will be considered during the freight unit building, and the items consolidated into one freight unit will be loaded into equipment. That means your tracking and tracing will be done based on equipment and not based on product or packages. Okay, so that is, so when you'll be, in case you want to create any container unit, suppose if you want to transport using container and all, in that case you can create you can put the CN as 20 feet. So in that case, whatever tracking and tracing you want to do with reference to container, it will be based on that. So that means the freight unit will be loaded into the container. Okay. Any other question? So there is another part which is about the advanced settings. So the last part what will come on this freight unit building strategy is this additional tab what you see here. Okay. So this tab is actually again it's not a mandatory thing. Okay, because there are certain parameters which may be required, which may not be required. And for that we sometimes don't use this, but I just go through the fields quickly. So this is the standard strategy. So in TM, whatever operations you do, it is always influenced by strategy. Because it's a web-based product, and in any type of web-based product, strategy drives the entire process components within the architecture. So whether you are doing any strategy for your planning, whether you are doing any strategy, or rather when you are executing any freight unit building rule process, or whether you are basically doing any charge calculation process, in the back end, there has to be some strategy which covers this. And in standard, the strategy here for freight unit building rule is FUB_auto. FUB stands for freight unit building and auto means automatic. Okay. And here, if you see, there is a concept called as a dangerous goods. So dangerous goods is something where, in case you are transporting any product which falls or rather for which dangerous goods master record has been maintained, then when the freight unit gets created, it will always indicate that it's a dangerous goods product. Okay. So this is it is required because somehow you need to have an indicator whereby the freight unit building rule along with the other master data will indicate whether you are transporting a dangerous goods or not. And this is the maximum number of ADR points. ADR points means there is some regulations, methods and points assigned, which will indicate whether that particular product is liable to be transported or not. So that's why we have this ADR points. And these are all related to DG methods. So in case you are not using dangerous goods, this is not required. Okay. This is the package building. Can you tell me what is package building? What do you mean by packages? Anyone worked on packages? Why packages are required? Anyone? No one.
Grouping of materials with similar packaging requirements to be transported.
Not grouping of packages. So basically,
No, grouping of materials in a package which have with those who have, which have similar packaging requirements for transportation.
yes. So you're right. So basically packaging is always a warehousing process. Okay. So that's why in standard ECC, you'll see all warehouse specific information generally influences the result of packaging. Okay. But for an end-to-end process perspective, suppose my carrier wants to know much before it reaches warehouse, whether I want to bring a certain container where I'll be putting only my product or I will be putting both package and product, right? So that's why, in case you need that orders needs to be or the other products needs to be placed on packages, then both packages and pallets can be used. So the goal for SAP team here is to close the gap between orders, which is based on products, and the load planning, which happens based on package. Because, for example, if the product is collected to be collected by the carrier, and if he is not bringing the proper equipment, maybe because he's not knowing whether packages are to be picked up or pallets, then it can lead to inconsistent planning and inconsistent load planning on the particular resource, right? Therefore, in case you are going to use packaging, then within the freight unit building rule, you need to specify that. So within the freight unit, so package building actually is included as part of freight unit buildings. And this package building is a rule-based engine. So that's why we need to specify the package building profile. Okay, here. And whether you are building the packages for all or whether it is based on per item, that is what this result is about. Okay. So package building is inserted into the overall planning process at the freight unit building rule level. Okay, and these packages are later used in subsequent planning steps like manual planning or optimizer planning to create your freight orders, and subsequent you can also do some load planning also. So in order to indicate all those things for package building and all, you need to specify the package builder profile. So we'll come into package builder profile concept later on because that is not being assumed in the course, but I will cover this in details later. Okay. Now this is your freight unit building rule. Okay, and if you want to create your own freight unit building rule, you can always click on the existing one, the copy one. Okay. And once you copy a particular freight unit building rule, it will ask for a transport request. And here you can actually specify the name of the rule. And this is the document type. So document type means what is the freight unit type which will be created, because you have seen like when I was creating the freight unit, it got created automatically because within every freight unit, you have a freight unit building rule. So here you need to specify that using this rule, which is the freight unit type I need to create. I need to create a freight unit type, for example, with 0001. So you can create this as a 0001. In case this document type is to be determined based on some condition, that is my BRA plus condition, then you can use this. If you have to consider any constraints while doing the planning, constraints here means incompatibility constraints. That means suppose some products cannot be transported with each other. So that is called as the incompatibility. So that incompatibility part settings you can set up here. And here, if you want to specify per item basis, you can consolidate it per item. If you want to specify the split quantity based on, say, quantity. So this split quantity means basically in this case, you have to change it to quantity. Because this has to be same as this. And in case of quantity, it has to be each. Similarly, if you want to use a split rule, then you can specify the split rule as 3, for example. I don't want to create any equipment type and group. I can keep it as blank. And then I can click on this. I don't want to create any package builder. So that's why I can remove this. Okay. And then I can click on save button. And here you can see the administrative data, what is created, who has changed, etc. And once you have created this freight unit building rule, then this freight unit building rule needs to be assigned here at this particular logistics profile. And once you assign this here, then you need to basically assign this logistics profile to different integration of sales or debit. Okay. Any question on the freight unit building rule and all? Clear to everyone about the freight unit part? Because this concept has to be clear, or else you will not be able to understand other things as well. So please let me know if it is not clear. Any point, any document, any field which is not clear to you, please let me know. Okay. So if you want to create a freight unit building rule from an app, you can also do it. Rather than copying, you can go into this application administration. Okay. So if you go into this particular application administration, actually I've got so much of tiles because I have access to all the applications. Okay, so that's why sometimes this becomes a little bit slow for me. But in the actual world, you will not be having access to so much of tiles, so much of access because I have SAP all. Okay, so that is what sometimes the problem causes in terms of loading the Fury tiles. Okay, so what I can do, I will go here. Just a moment. We're going to application administration. So this is application administration. This is general settings. So this is planning. This is general settings. And this is place where you can create your own freight unit billing group. Okay. So under application administration, you will have planning, and under planning, under general settings, you can create a freight unit billing group. So if you want to create it from scratch, you can always use this navigation path, or you can directly copy an existing standard and you can do it. Okay. So that is the meaning of this particular freight unit building group. Okay. Clear? Anything? Any other question on freight unit? I think we had already gone details into all the fields. So the only last part which is remaining for freight unit is your configuration of freight unit type. So if you see this, whenever I created any freight unit, let me close this. Too much of documentation has opened, I think. And in the Fury app also, you'll see there's a freight unit building. Under profiles and settings, we have freight unit building. Same thing. Okay. So when you are, let me close this. So if you see here, whenever any freight unit is created, it always needs to create with a freight unit type, right? So you can create a freight unit type directly from SPRO. You can go to transport management. You can go to planning, freight unit, and freight unit type. Okay. So this is the configuration of the document type of freight unit. So if you want to create any freight unit, you have to first of all create a document type for that. So today we'll try to cover the left hand side part. Tomorrow we'll cover this. So this is the document type. This is the description of the freight unit. What is the default type? As I told you, every document type in TM needs to have a default type. So if you see here, and only one default type is applied. Okay, you cannot have multiple default types for the same document. You can create different freight unit types, but default type will only be one. This is the time for drawing. The time for drawing means basically you can draw the number immediately. So what immediately means? Can you tell me what is the difference between these two from the configuration? What do you feel? What is the difference between these two?
The first one will create the document number after commit or something.
Yes.
And the second one will reserve.
Not reserve. But basically when the freight unit or freight order, this option is there for all documents. That means one is after committing, you are correct. That means during the saving, the number will be generated and one will be generated during runtime, right? So that is the difference between these two. So either you save and then generate the number, or you don't save and then generate the number at the runtime. That is what is the time for drawing means. This is the number range interval. So interval means basically this is related to the number range, right? So if you are creating a number range, the number range will be created based on this interval. Basic settings. So basic settings means whether you want to have the provision to delete a freight unit, you can put a tick mark here. Track change. So track change means if you want to track all the changes which you have made into a freight unit, you can do the track change button. So if I open my freight unit, for example, okay, and if I go here, there is a change documents here. Okay, suppose if I just put my username. And if I click on apply. So in case I have made any changes to the freight unit and all, if you see, all the changes will be reflected here. It will reflect in which node the changes have been done, whether the change is an update or insert, what is the description of the change, what is the old value, what is the new value. All this information will be there in this particular change tab. In order to accommodate all the changes, so if you want the system to track all the changes, then this track change button will be there. Okay. Then you have the planning settings. So planning settings means what? Planning settings means this, as you know, that freight unit is a basically a planning document, right? So whenever you have any type of planning document, there are certain planning settings which you need to do. So for example, we have a planning profile. So planning profile means, see, we don't generally use planning profile here. We use planning profile in our particular cockpit planning. So when you want to do any type of transportation planning in the cockpit, we use planning profile. But here, so for example, if I open any planning profile, any transportation cockpit. So if I go here, if I go to planning, see if I go to transportation cockpit. So with any cockpit, if you see, we need to enter a planning profile. So this is one of the way by which you can select how you want to plan different freight units, right? So you don't have to give a general planning profile for a specific freight unit. You can directly put the planning profile in the cockpit and then you do the planning. But if you want that a certain freight unit should be planned completely, uniquely, separately from other freight units, then you can specify a planning profile here. So planning profile is something which is not mandatory to be maintained while you are doing your particular freight unit setup, but you can actually use it for your setup. Okay. Any question? Clear to everyone? Okay. Next comes your pickup and delivery time window. So if you remember, I told you this pickup and delivery time window is mainly used in case you want to set up a specific freight unit. So if I go into planning, if I go, or rather if I Okay. If I go into this planning mode, if I open any one planning document, that is my freight unit. If I go into this, you will see that every location has some dates. You see these dates? So this is the pickup date, this is the delivery date. So what does these dates do? These dates means that my freight unit source location pickup is 17th and my destination location delivery date is 18th. So that means there are two types of dates here. One is the acceptable dates with start and end date. One is the requested dates with start and end date. So that means, what does it mean? This means that these acceptable and requested dates can be influenced by per customer. That means a specific customer may tell me, okay, please pick up the goods only at 5 p.m. Please deliver the goods only by 6 p.m. That means you can have customer specific pickup and customer specific departure dates. So this pickup means you're loading, destination means unloading. Okay, and the difference between acceptable and requested is acceptable is a hard constant, requested is a soft constant. So if suppose you have put in any dates here. Okay, suppose it is the 17th at 5 o'clock, end date is 17 at 6 o'clock. That means between 5 and 6, if there is no freight order created, still system can proceed with the optimization, but there will be some penalty costs associated. But if we are putting the dates is acceptable and acceptable, if this time range, within this time range, if your freight order is planned outside this time range, then you will not be able to create a freight order because these are called as a hard constant. These dates cannot be rejected at all. So for these acceptable and requested dates, how you are planning to create these dates, that is what this particular configuration is about. So either these planning dates, you can put it based on this particular configuration, or you can use a BRF plus condition to basically automatically populate and determine the dates. In case you are using BRF plus condition, then you can specify per location wise what is the pickup and delivery date. Okay. So that is also called as a PUDL. PUDL stands for pickup and delivery time window condition. Condition means again it's a BRF plus. So when I come into BRF plus condition, I will show you one of the application there. And here if you see there are three options there. First option is basically what we do. The pickup and delivery, what is defined in your OTR, DTR, we put those dates and directly update. So that means whatever dates will be there for your source and destination, that will be considered as the source and the destination location pickup and delivery dates. Requested means basically what is the earliest time for pickup and what is the latest delivery time for delivery. That dates will be used for determining your source and destination location dates. And in case you want that pickup and delivery is exactly requested on the same day, then you will have the dates available. So because our requested delivery dates are based on the sales order and delivery, so generally we go for the first option. Okay. And in case, so you cannot use both. In case you want to use condition, then BRF plus condition has to be given the preference. The second part is the distance and the duration determination. So distance and duration determination is actually, there are again three options. use default, enable automatic, disable automatic. So use default means basically when you are opening any freight unit, you will always have this distance and duration calculated automatically. So if you want to automatically enable that, then you can change the tick mark to enable automatic determination. If you want to have this distance and duration calculation based on manual activity, manual means if you go to stages tab, you can click on determine distance and duration. Okay. So if you want to basically create such type of where you want to determine the distance and duration only once you click on that. Okay. If you want to click on that, determine distance and duration, then you have to set up enable the default one. But if you want to have the distance and duration calculated automatically, if you don't want to click on this, then you have to click on this activate automatic distance and duration. Okay. Is this option, is this clear to you? Okay. Any question from anyone? Okay. Then we have the default means of transport. So default means of transport means, if you see here, when we are creating a freight unit, if I go here, if I go into stages, see means of transport is usually blank because I am not planning any freight, even though I am creating a freight order from this stage, but I am not planning to any resource. And unless a resource is there, your means of transport will be blank. Correct? So if you see this particular freight unit also, so you never see that that you will have a specific default way to create that, right? So in order to have, if you want to have a specific means of transport to be specified here for freight unit, a fixed means of transport, then you need to specify this particular means of transport here as well as, or you can use a BRF plus condition for setting it up. So either a default means of transport or a condition. Condition means again a BRF plus condition. So you can say, okay, for this specific shipping point, my means of transport is 001. For this specific shipping point SP20, my means of transport is 002. So that means based on a different combination of means of transport, your output will be triggered. This is the execution settings. So execution settings means basically how will the output. So if you go into this particular freight unit, you will have a execution settings tab. So right now it is blank, but if you remember, I have showed you how to click on insert event and all, right? So you can always click on insert event and you can add your events here, right? Suppose I inserted certain event. Suppose I inserted this event. Loading begin. Tipping point. Okay. So once I have inserted this, in that case, you can actually specify and see that in the UI, this is called as a UI, right? User interface. You can see what are the different types of information we are filling and how does this information look like. that is actually used in case you want to use event management. So this entire setup is for event management integration. So in case you are using event management, you need to specify, okay, whether my execution tracking is done with event management. If not, you say no execution tracking. Display mode for execution tab. Display mode means when I'm basically going into freight unit, how is the display going to be influenced? So you know that display important information is this date and time, whether this date and time is manually reported. So if you see ghost code recorded directly, that means manually reported. Also, this date and time can come from an event management server as well, because if you are using event management, the real time will always come from event management. So that's what you get to see here, whether the events, the information is coming from the actual event information is coming from TM only, whether it is coming from EM or only the expected is coming from EM, actual is coming from TM and EM. Because I've told you there are two types of dates. One is a planned date, one is your actual date. Because we don't have event management, so event management's a planned date is always blank. But in real scenario, when you will have event management, you can actually check whether the expected and the actual are mapping or not. Okay. Any question? Anything which you want to discuss on this? Okay. And the last two parts is your propagation mode. So propagation mode means, again, this is applicable only in case you have event management. So in case you want to propagate your events from your freight order to freight unit or from freight unit to freight order, we go for the standard propagation. So that means you don't have to report events separately into business document. If you're reporting events in one business document, that will be propagated to the next business document and vice versa. And this is the last expected event. Last expected event means, suppose I am reporting this event unloading end. When I am reporting this event unloading end, that means I am telling to the system that my life cycle of my document is executed. Executed means it's finished, final. No further execution is going to happen. So that is the funda of last expected event. So last expected event is only reported, making sure that the execution will be completed by reporting that event. So the status of execution will change to executed. Okay. Clear? Any question from anyone? So and this immediate processing means what? So if you go into the help button, so immediate processing means if you are selecting this checkbox, the life cycle will automatically set to in process when a business document is created. So that means it is basically changing the processing, the life cycle status of your particular freight order. So that means if you go here to any type of freight unit, and this is the status tab. And in the status tab, you see the life cycle status. So it will change to in process because the immediate processing has to be tick marked. Then only once you are creating a freight order and freight booking, the life cycle status will change to in process. That is the meaning of immediate processing. Okay. Clear? So we'll stop here today and we'll start off. So just one more thing I covered last part. Here, when you are, if you are using event management, you have to also specify this application object type, because event management is integrated with TM at freight unit, freight order, freight booking, 3 business documents. So in case you want to integrate your particular application object type. With freight unit, you write here FU. With FO, you write FO. With TO, we write TO. So generally for freight unit, we write FU. And if we're integrating, when we go into freight order, you will see freight order will be there. In that case, we'll select TO. TO stands for freight order freight book. But because I don't have integration with event management, so I will just keep this in blank. I don't have to do anything.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to visit our Vimeo page and follow for more upcoming videos.